You on the show.
Thank you so much.
You're watching View from the Top. My guest today is a business leader who always stays ahead of the curve. He left a global position of managing assets worth $60 billion only to return to India and take on the mandate with a large conglomerate, the Aditya Birla Group, to turn around their financial services business. Ajay Srinivasan. He's perhaps one of the rare CEOs in the industry with experience of managing such huge portfolios across multiple verticals and multiple geographies. Ajay, thank you very much for joining us on NDTV.
Thank you, Manisha.
You were handpicked to turn around the business, which had a great start, but had somewhere started languishing. What were the challenges that you came with, and how's it been 2 years hence?
Well, let me start with the whole move to come back to India, because I think that's really the decision I took 2 years ago, and that's what set off this journey over the last 2 years. And I think that move from Hong Kong, where I was for 7 years, back to Bombay, was really driven by 3 factors. It was driven first by the India story, which I was more and more interested in, sitting in Hong Kong, watching the way India was developing. And I could see even 2 years back that the story was an India-China story that was emerging. So that was my first call. The second call was a call to get into financial services in a broader sense, because I really feel that the next 10 to 15 years is going to be a wonderful era of growth for financial services in a market like India. And the third was to come back to a group which is a household name in India, which opens so many doors. I think it just gave me a wonderful way to get into this market after being out of it for 7 years. I think the last 2 years have been very interesting in different ways. For one, I think we've had 2 very different years that I've been back home. I think the first year where everything was bullish and nothing could go wrong, and a second year where the world seemed to be at the edge of an abyss. So I think with those 2 contrasting years, it's been interesting to see how the business has grown. We've grown from 5 businesses, which I inherited when I came in 2 years ago, to now 7 businesses. We had about 2 million customers. We're now over 4.5 million customers. We had sales in a year, which we now do in a month. So I think in terms of the momentum and the pace of change, I think it's been quite an interesting and exciting time over the last 2 years.
Like you said, huge upside and then huge downside. But just put in perspective both the global and the domestic experience of working per se. What are the challenges between the two, and what are the similarities or other differences also?
See, I think there are broadly the drivers of financial services in whichever market you work are not that different. I think they tend to be built around distribution, the kind of distribution you have, the kind of products that work in those markets, the attraction of a brand, the attraction and the ability to build a customer and operations framework that can support the business, and last, the people. So I think while those drivers don't change, I think although I worked in Asia and worked across 10 markets for 7 years, building businesses from ground up, I think the culture is really what makes the big difference in most of these markets. It's how do you work with people, what works in markets. So distribution varies from market to market, products vary from market to market, what drives people varies a little bit from market to market. So I guess that's really the experience and the excitement of the last 9 years that you just talked about.
You spoke about people. Now you're a man who's always best described as a person who's in a hurry. And the pace of growth, if you see for Aditya Birla's financial services group since you've joined, it's grown by leaps and bounds. You've just enumerated some numbers for us. Yet that number 1 position deludes you. I'm sure you're not happy still.
Well, I take your point on speed. It's driven by a couple of things, really, from my perspective. I think the opportunity is so large, and when you deal with an opportunity of the scale and size that we have currently in the Indian financial services market, I think the excitement itself drives a certain level of pace, in me as an individual. The second area that I really put a lot of focus in, other than speed, because I believe speed is important, not haste. So I think I like to draw a distinction between the two. It's important that people act quickly, but not in haste, not without thinking about what they're doing. But I think the second big area that I personally put a lot of focus on is the quality of execution. Because I've seen that people spend a lot of time thinking about what to do and how to do it, and you have to get that right as well. But I think it's important not to ponder too much on that and to make sure that the execution you get is equally good, because in my mind, a lot of the differences in performance you see on the ground amongst several institutions is really driven by the quality of execution, not always by the kind of strategy that they've followed. So I really personally put a lot of focus in terms of both speed and in terms of quality of execution. As for the number one slot, we want to be a top 3 player in the businesses that we are in. We say our vision for our business is really built around 4 pillars. We want to be leaders in the businesses in which we operate. We want to be role models. So it's not just a unidimensional view of leadership. We want to make sure the way we run business, the kind of practices and processes we follow, really sets an example for the industry as a whole. Our third pillar for the vision we've set for our business is built around building broad-based businesses. Businesses that really provide a range of products and options for the customer groups that we cater to. And today, across our 7 businesses, we can really provide products other than banking products. We have the ability to provide any products to our customer group. And the last pillar for our vision is really around building all of this in an integrated fashion, because we believe if you do it in that way, then there are several benefits from doing that. So I think we're in early stages of putting all of this together, but I think if we get this right, then who knows where this will take us.
So what's the time frame? I'm sure you've set an internal deadline for yourself to be one amongst the top 3.
See, while I say I'm in a hurry, and I don't, I'm not ashamed to say that, I think businesses are really built over a period of time. You've got to make sure you get the foundation right. You've got to make sure you're putting the right basis for being able to build the business. And I think that's the way I look to do it. So we are in a hurry, but we need to put the foundation. We need to build the business. We need to build the building on top of the foundation as well. And as I say, I think, if we do these things right, if we do what's right for our customers, if we do what's right for our employees, if we do what's right for our shareholders, we would have already done a very good job.
All right, talking about foundation, people are always, like you've mentioned earlier, for financial services, they're an important part of building a strong foundation. Now, mark of leadership is also when there's a change of guard, people stick around, people stick with you, and that's been characteristic of your movements, Ajay. What makes people stick to you?
Well, that's a question you should ask the people who work for me rather than me. But my people philosophy is really driven by a few things, and maybe I should just talk about that. I believe when I'm looking for people, one of the key things I look for is passion and commitment, because I think I can teach people, or people can learn a number of things, but they can't learn passion and commitment. So that's the first thing I look for people. Then I want to be able to provide an environment for these people which is very entrepreneurial in nature. I want them to feel that this is their own business, and that as senior leadership, we're providing them the tools and the environment in which they can prosper with this environmental mindset. I think that's a very second important piece that we do. And the third thing that personally I feel a job of a leader is very important is really looking at what you think the potential of the individual is. And often I find people don't recognize that potential themselves. And to be able to set a goal for that person where by stretching a little bit, and sometimes a little bit more than they expect, they can reach a goal that they never thought they could exist, that they could reach. And I think by doing that, you see a complete transformation in the individual, because they realize they've achieved something that they never thought possible themselves. And the success and the joy that comes from doing something like that is an exhilaration that creates momentum for many years to come.
What next in terms of business growth? You've done an acquisition, and you've also incubated a PE business. How do you want to take these two forward, and what are the next targets in areas of growth?
See, I think on the retail broking business that we acquired back in March of this year, we really acquired a platform that has about 200,000 customers, a distribution network of about 700 branches across the breadth of this country. I think it gives us a great platform to be able to build a wealth management and financial distribution model across the country. And I think there's significant growth opportunity in this on both counts, in terms of adding customers, in terms of selling more products through that distribution network. So these are early days. We've just been 6 months in the business. In fact, the business has had a very, very successful 6 months. The results have just been out recently. We've grown significantly over last year in terms of both revenue and in terms of profitability. In terms of the PE business, I think it fits very well with our overall scheme of businesses. It provides another product for our high net worth customer, and it provides a business that I think provides a number of linkages to several Aditya Birla Group companies and our operating experience that we have built. So we look to grow that business as well, greenfield. On the issue of acquisitions, I think we are always opportunistically looking for acquisitions. We think that there will be opportunities always in a market, and I think we might see some coming up over the next 2-3 years in all the businesses in which we operate. And I think you've got to opportunistically